Hey everybody, welcome to Nagios in the Node, and today we're going to talk about how to make log management entertaining. Anybody?
Can it be done?
Can it be done?
Stay tuned to find out. Sorry.
Absolutely. So we are talking today about log management. We have a solution, Nagios Log Server.
Taking a step back, Aaron, I know we have a dedicated fan base already, but who are we?
Who are we? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I almost didn't say, well, I'm Aaron, and I perhaps need no introduction.
Perhaps. I'm Ryan, sales manager here.
And I'm Dylan. I'm a support engineer.
Fantastic.
You're in the node.
You are in the node, which is a play on in the know.
Love it.
But then there's nodes. I mean, it's not like a binary search tree, but yeah. I feel like a lot of this is going to get edited out. So Kevin's like, no, we're rolling with it.
We'll do it live.
So, but let's talk about search. I mean, really, like when it comes to log management and logging, the critical, fundamental computer science problem that we're solving is search, right? I mean, there is so much log data.
To take a step back, Aaron, I think the first thing we solve is collection. Yeah, I'm amazed. Amazed is the wrong word, but the people we speak with day in and day out, just the ability to collect their log data is a revelation to them.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, sure, even if you're not analyzing it or searching it, simply aggregating it and archiving it all in one place.
Yeah, and I know something we talk about on the sales side is generally step one, and I can kind of say this with confidence, is to collect the data. So regardless of the compliancy you're looking for or compliancy you're trying to meet, collecting the data is step one of all those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, amazing that, and I think people and organizations have this challenge, like how do we centralize it? How do we collect all of this data? How do we send it all in there? Because that is like, whether your use case is keeping track of things or ensuring compliance or having the records that you can go through, that is the first piece of the puzzle. So what do people do with that? What are the keys to collecting?
The keys to collecting, redundancy, failover.
Sure.
That's why our solution is clustered, incidentally.
Yes.
It can be set up in a clustered way where your data has redundancy in case one of the nodes goes down.
Well, I would say, I don't know if that's collecting. This might be a little more preservation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, as far as collection goes, our solution does not actively collect things. You must send them to it.
And that, I think, is a really key point. So, like, you'll find that with any opportunity you have out there to aggregate your logs, is you do have to point them all at the same place. But I think that's the great thing about a solution like Nagios Log Server is you can send everything to it when you collect, and then the search bit comes into play.
Yeah.
And that's when it becomes so important because there is so much data.
Exactly.
You're collecting from network devices, from virtual machines, from physical machines, from applications, from all kinds of different devices out there. And one of the things that I think is really interesting when you get into sort of the nuts and bolts of it is that we collect logs by type, right? And so on the back end, when you run a Nagios Log Server installation, we actually collect logs by port. Or we differentiate logs by what port they come in on. And so like you might have your Windows event log coming in on one port, and then you'll have your syslog from your Linux and Unix devices on another port. You can have, and then you can distinguish different types by the port that it comes in on as we're collecting. And so I think that's one of the things that is fantastic about it, is that we when we collect, the first thing we do is we categorize it by what type it is, and we control that by what port on the server it goes to. And then we immediately apply some filtering,
Yep.
and then it gets added to the database. And so that's where the collection and the searchability go hand in hand.
Yeah. And something that we kind of touch on when we're educating people on why you potentially need XI paired with Log Server is they're kind of Batman and Robin in a sense, where XI is going to tell you what went wrong. XI is going to tell you who went wrong, what went wrong, and when it went wrong, and then Log Server is going to give you the context that led up to that going wrong. So it's a really helpful tool when it comes to investigation and trying to figure out why does this keep breaking. Well, Log Server's capturing everything. So here's the tail of the tape. Here's the timestamps to go with it. You know when it went down via XI. So let's see what happened before it, and maybe we can prevent it moving forward.
Well, and I think that's like incredibly important, because when you take a look at like how's an application performing, you might have the data that says it's not performing.
Yeah.
We know that it's down, but it's in the logs that you're going to find out, well, we keep blowing through memory, right? So you might see that the out of memory killer is logged as we try to reclaim some memory, and that process just ran out. And we might even see that data, we might in XI, where we'll see that data or the memory getting more and more utilization, and more utilization, and then it'll drop off.
You got it. Yeah.
And that's going to be correlated with the out of memory killer. And that correlation is really at the heart of understanding what's going on there.
Yeah.
Well, it gives you the complete story, right? Because just seeing your memory graph grow and drop off and grow and drop off gives you an idea of what might be happening.
Yeah.
But maybe there's someone in the organization who's literally going in and p-killing a bunch of processes right at that moment,
Right. And I think so, like that, this point also talks to, I think, the third important thing after collection and searchability is aggregation, right?
Yeah.
We're pulling all that information into one interface, right? You might have thousands of devices out there, and with everything pointed to the same log aggregation endpoint, you can look for anything on there,
Exactly,
right? And
yeah.
you can go to one interface and you can pull up the logs for the specific device that you're looking for. And you can do that search. You can search not only by the individual device, but the things that you kind of suspect are going to be wrong.
Take a shot.
Sure.
And
If you're looking at Apache logs and you're trying to find your 500s, or your 404s, if you're going to go and look at your Apache log in the terminal on your Linux server, assuming it's a Linux server,
good luck.
the amount of effort you're going to have to put into grepping through that raw log file is tremendous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk a little bit about search and some of the things that are important in search. One of the challenges I think we have is that, and that everybody out there has, is it's a database, right? We're taking the logs and we're putting them into the database, and we are on the back end, the database is very structured, right? Like it actually takes the log message, it breaks it down into discrete pieces, and so that we can identify, like, well, what is this syslog, or is this event log? Or is this SSH logging, or is this another, Linux utilities logs, right? So there's a lot of ways that we break it down. The challenge with that is that we have to be able to ask for the data in the database's way.
Yeah, you got to be able to speak the language of the database.
And so in the case of Nagios Log Server, that's Lucene queries, which are not necessarily, they're not impossible to learn, but they're not they don't teach you that in third grade.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, and even knowing other query languages, Lucene isn't the, what's the word I'm looking for? The most intuitive inherently, right? Like a lot of query languages are declarative. Select this from that table where this is true. Lucene isn't quite so intuitively declarative.
True. And so one of the things that I want to talk about is how AI can help us
Yeah.
and the directions that we're going with that as we follow developments that are out there. We have introduced an experimental feature that we're expanding on. And there's a couple of aspects to that, but basically it's leveraging AI to be able to say, I want to see like all of the Windows logs for this device, or I want to look for this string in there, right? Like, the exact phrasing of the log that you're looking for. You just got to sort through and find it. We're working on natural language queries. We talked about this, I think, once before.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it. Yep.
Basically what it does is it leverages AI to take your regular query, like you just say what you want, and then it builds the Lucene query for you.
Yeah, it's fantastic because a salesman like me, I can now use Log Server and get data out of it that I'm interested in.
And I think that is one of the great applications. I mean, you're self-deprecating in saying that, but
It's honest because I had no idea how to write queries.
and what it can do is it extends the usability of
100%.
the solution to other departments.
Yep.
Where you have the opportunity with multi-tenancy to be able to extend a login to somebody else in another department. We can limit what they can see, what they can query, but it's certainly, if they're able to see it, and we've recorded that correctly, they should be able to just type in what they want.
You got it, yeah. And vice versa. It when I ask you for certain logs I'm interested in, I don't waste your time with you having to figure out that Lucene query. I give you a couple keywords, and within minutes you have it back to me with what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are some real challenges with our first shot at the experimental version of that. One of which is on the back end, we leverage a third-party API. And so if that is enabled and if people are using it, what we do is, and in order to be able to use it, you put in your API key for the third-party AI application, and we're supporting more. Currently, we're leveraging OpenAI. We're about to support more of those with that. And what we do is we send your exact query out to, and by we, I mean your log server instance sends that out. And then that is what gets interpreted and put back into a Lucene query. And so the API call returns a Lucene query. Now, people have a very realistic, totally valid concern about data leaving the grounds, right? And so it is true, like whatever you type in there gets sent, right? And for the most part, you could see that by and large, queries wouldn't necessarily be, they would mostly be innocuous,
The
right?
natural language you would use to ask for something from the data wouldn't contain any proprietary or sensitive information necessarily in most cases, right?
Right. And we don't like, they don't have access to the database itself.
Correct. Yeah.
It's just, we take a string of text in English and we send that string of text and we get a query, and then the query happens on your local instance and you get the results that you're looking for. And still, it is completely reasonable that for some organizations, that is just absolutely not possible.
Yeah. And I think it just echoes the ethos of Nagios as a whole is flexibility, and you choose how you want to monitor. In the same vein, you choose which model, if you want to go this route, you're able to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we want to do is if you have a preferred third-party API, we want to be able to enable you to use that.
Yep.
I mean, kind of the cool thing about AI and especially AI APIs is that they've all standardized.
Yeah.
There is one standard format for that API. And so that every model that we support, you should be able to just plug and play.
Yeah.
I would rather use this or that.
We already have this approved on our vendor list, or whatever the reason may be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are some of the exciting things. So like one of the things I want to talk about for sure is like how people are using it out there. And I know, Dylan, you see, of course, you're in support, so you see like when people are having challenges, but what kind of things are they having when they have challenges? What kind of things are they trying to do? What applications are you seeing? What use cases are you seeing out there?
Well, I'm not the most knowledgeable person on the support team about Log Server in particular.
Right, Craig is, but he won't do these.
Yes, exactly. And I was trying to get a moment of his time earlier this morning, but we couldn't get it together. In general, the problems that people have are technical issues not related necessarily to their use case.
All right, but not necessarily problems, but like what are their use cases? What use cases do you see? They happen to come in through the support department, but what actual use cases are you seeing out there?
Sure. I mean, most people are using it to monitor their application servers that are serving their product websites, or their application servers.
Okay.
Or even people with large distributed Nagios XI systems are using it to aggregate all of their XI logs in one place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have done, I worked a few places, right? I mean, I was here at Nagios for a while, and then I went on walkabout, and now I'm happily back here. And I saw a lot of really interesting stuff out there. And I know that there are a lot of organizations that they'll set up Log Server and they will just kitchen sink the whole thing. Like everything goes there, and they just have a central point for everything. And then they just gate, who sees what, who can see what, difference between an admin or a user. And it is just everything goes to one spot.
Sure.
I've seen a couple of customers that are ingesting 500 gigs or more of logs daily.
Mm-hmm.
Insane.
Which is, you can't have the longest data retention policy necessarily on that kind of
If you got
volume.
the money.
Right?
I mean, if you can move things off to cold storage, create backups. Part of the nature of the way Log Server works is that an open index is searchable, right? You're able to utilize it using Lucene queries and look at it. And an index must be open to have new logs written into it, and it must be open to be searchable. But while it's open, it is in the Java heap memory. So you can only have so many indexes open when you're ingesting that kind of volume for like actively searching and using and analyzing.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you improve that capacity the more nodes you add to the cluster.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So there's for something like that, where you're pulling in 500 gigs of log data a day, which is a tremendous amount. I mean, one of the great things about the solution is scalability.
Scalability. Yep.
Log Server is licensed by the cluster, right? So your individual instances
Work together to become that cluster.
work together to
Yep.
become that cluster and share the license.
You got it.
Uh-huh.
And when we have these conversations with our larger customers, especially when it comes to Log Server, it's really, where are you able to spend your money at that time? Will adding more software be beneficial to you, or potentially more hardware? And that really comes down to the needs of the customer. How long is hot retention needed before you can move it to cold retention or cold storage, however you want to phrase it. So these are the conversations we're thinking about. We always recommend testing with our 30-day trial of Log Server. You can download as multiple log servers as you'd like and instance them together to test this out for yourself. And then you can figure out what makes sense for your budget. Is it the software side that's going to help us at this time, or is it potentially throwing more hardware at it?
Yeah. 2 Log Server instances walk into a bar. No, that's all I got.
Why the long face?
Face. I like it. So that brings up another topic that is current. Not only are we working on AI and integrating that in terms of, specifically we're talking about natural language queries, but we see a lot of applications for that as we extend it. We're also working on upgrading the backend to Nagios Log Server. And it's a really interesting thing because it's time to upgrade that. And one of the great things is that Log Server kind of just works.
Mm-hmm.
And we have perhaps delayed updating the back end as it was not a huge issue for most people.
The basic functionality of have logs sent to me, interpret input, filter logs, that hasn't changed. Even with upgrading just allows us a little more future proof, but the base functionality, it just works. It just works.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to improve on the basic functional design of log aggregation and search.
And yet, there are a lot of improvements and opportunities and things that we're able to leverage with an updated backend. So that is definitely on the roadmap for the product. We're actively developing that. I think we're also going to be looking at doing an interface appearance upgrade as well, much like we just did with the Neptune theme in Nagios XI. We're looking to revamp the interface. Again, it's going to be pretty straightforward. We'd like to kind of make the languages be the same and have the products have a similar look and feel in that way, although they are very separate projects, but they do different things. But I'm excited about that as well. So there's a lot coming up for Nagios Log Server in the near future.
Yeah, very excited for Log Server.
Yes. Updating the interface to match the new updated XI. The subtle inherent advantage of using products that have similar looks and feels makes training in on those different products a lot easier, right? It adds a sense of familiarity if you're switching between products. Well, hopefully they still have a slightly distinct look, so you don't go, wait, I thought I was on,
Yeah. I mean, and it's like certainly the way that data is presented in the log server interface is by nature
quite a bit different.
A bit different than what you're going to see in Nagios XI. But yeah, absolutely. And we're really excited about getting that sort of thing in there. Ryan, I want to toss you a big softball here.
Okay.
Why do we recommend, you can get a one instance cluster. You can.
Okay, I think I know where you're going with this.
You.
Yeah.
All right, here you go. Why do we always recommend at least two?
Yeah, we always recommend at least two, at least as a starting or jump off point, because you're really going to get the data redundancy having two instances. Should one of those go down, the information shared between the two, you'll have it readily available as you work getting that back one up.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's key, right? I mean, not only, if something fails, even if you have the data, right? Even if say everything fails but the drive and you still have the data, well, while the machine itself is down, you can't collect more.
Yep.
You can't search.
And logs keep coming.
Yeah. So data redundancy is
huge.
Absolutely key to that.
Well, and also there's an interesting technical challenge. If you have a one instance cluster, the way that our log server checks its own health is it verifies that it has two or more clusters in order to show green health. If you only have one cluster, the health status that it reports to itself will at best be yellow unless you do we have an article about how to do a whole workaround to make it show green even though it's got a single cluster, but inherently to consider itself healthy, it wants to have at least a primary and replica shard for all your indices.
A friend.
Man. Who doesn't like low companionship?
Hold hands for the buddy system.
Yeah.
with your replicant shard.
Sort of like an emotional support instance. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. So, team, I don't know that we actually made logging entertaining.
I think we tried.
Yeah. There any other logging jokes?
I was reaching for something about don't go anywhere without your clone in reference to replicant shards.
Right,
I don't have much there.
Yeah.
I go back to the classic Ren and Stimpy.
Right.
Oh, log.
It rolls downstairs.
Everyone loves a log.
It's better in pairs. Rolls over your neighbor's dog.
Yeah. Well, can we? I'm asking the video guys if we can get that like
Can we buy
sliced
that?
in.
Whatever it
can we get
takes.
that in? Yeah. So
Nickelodeon's kind of a hot button subject right now, though, so we might want to stay away from that. We'll figure it out. I can sing it if we need to.
all right, I like it. Well, hey everybody. I'm so pleased that you could spend a little more time with us. It's a shame if the humor had to wait till the end.
Yep.
But we'll be back more with even more topics here on Nagios in the Node.
Happy monitoring.